When Upeki finally pushed open that forbidden door, she froze. Her husband, the man she called the love of her life, was lying on top of a dead, pregnant woman. 6 of them, all lined up in white cloth. And before she could scream, he turned and whispered, "You shouldn't have seen this."
Many years ago, in the bustling city of Makondo, there lived a young man named Duru Nnamdi. Duru was every woman's dream. Tall, broad shoulders, skin that glowed like polished bronze, and a baritone voice that could melt the hardest heart. But what made him stand out the most wasn't his looks, it was his money. When people in Makondo talked about wealth, they mentioned Duru. He was filthy rich, richer than most politicians. He owned hotels, nightclubs, car dealerships, and even a private estate people whispered about. Duru's garage alone looked like a car exhibition, from Mercedes to Rolls-Royce, even cars that hadn't yet been released in Nigeria. Duru had them packed under his roof. His mansion stood on the edge of the city, a massive estate surrounded by a fence so high it almost touched the clouds. Rumor had it that even the air around his house smelled of money. Yet, for all his riches, Duru was a mystery. He didn't attend parties, didn't keep friends, and never allowed his staff to spend the night in his house. Every evening, by 6 o'clock sharp, all workers had to leave, no matter what. He lived alone with his secrets. There was a certain room inside Duru's mansion that no one, not even his most trusted worker, was allowed to enter. And behind that door, a darkness lived, one that could make even a grown man drop dead from fright. Still, Duru was popular among women. Young ladies from all corners of Makondo fought to get his attention. They sent him messages, visited his office, and even pretended to have car trouble just to meet him. But Duru was not interested in any of them. He preferred something different. Young, innocent girls from poor families in faraway villages. When it was time for him to marry, he didn't marry from Makondo. No. He traveled far to a quiet village in Alaoma, where he found a simple, beautiful girl named Imela. Imela was just 19, fresh out of secondary school. Her parents were struggling farmers who could barely afford to eat twice a day. When Duru showed up at their door, wearing expensive white attire and smiling with gold-capped teeth, they thought God himself had visited them. He didn't waste time. He told them he wanted to marry their daughter. He built a bungalow for her parents in the village. He bought her father a motorcycle, gave her mother cash, and promised to take care of the family for life. Money spoke, and just like that, Imela became his wife. Their wedding shook the entire village. People sang praises to her, calling her the girl who caught a golden fish. They envied her luck. After the ceremony, Duru brought his young bride to the city, to his great mansion. Imela was treated like a queen. She wore silk, ate whatever she wanted, and slept in a bed bigger than the whole sitting room in her father's house. For the first few months, life was like heaven on earth. Then she got pregnant. She was overjoyed. Duru too pretended to be happy. But just a few weeks later, the joy turned to tears. One night, Imela went to bed healthy and smiling, and by morning, she was gone, dead. Her parents cried their eyes out. Duru too cried, or at least pretended to. He insisted that he wanted to bury her behind his mansion, and the family agreed. After all, he was her husband. But unknown to everyone, Imela was not buried at all. What Duru buried was something far darker. A year after the death of his young wife, people expected Duru to remain single for a long time. But no, barely 12 months later, the city began to buzz again with news that the rich man of Makondo was taking another wife. This time, Duru traveled far to a small community called Utono, deep inside Benue State. There he met a beautiful young girl named Shiminenge, only 19 years old, bright eyes, calm smile, and dreams as wide as the open sky. Shimi was an orphan living with her uncle, a poor tailor who struggled to feed his large family. Every day after school, she would help her uncle's wife fry puff-puff by the roadside just to make ends meet. She was humble, hardworking, and innocent, the exact kind of girl Duru was always searching for. The day he met her, she was selling puff-puff near a market junction. Duru had driven past in one of his black SUVs and stopped to buy some. From the way he stared at her, it was obvious that his mind was no longer on the snack. The next day, he returned to that same spot, not for puff-puff this time, but for shimi. He went straight to her uncle's house, introduced himself politely, and said he wanted to marry her. Before the family could even process what was happening, Duru had already started showering them with gifts, bags of rice, cartons of oil, bundles of cash. He built a small shop for her uncle's wife and paid all the children's school fees in 1 week. The uncle didn't think twice. To him, this was a miracle from heaven. Shimi cried that she was not ready for marriage. She wanted to further her education, to study law someday. But her uncle convinced her. He said, "Do you know how many girls will kill for this kind of man? God has remembered us, my daughter. Don't waste this blessing." And so, just like that, she agreed. Their wedding became the talk of the whole Ushongo community. People danced till midnight. The local DJ even sang, "Na she may catch big fish oh," whilst paying her with money. After the wedding, Duru took her new bride to Makondo. Her first week in his mansion felt like a dream. She was served breakfast in bed, had servants at her beck and call, and wore clothes she never imagined she could own. For once, she thought life had smiled on her. Duru treated her gently. He called her my queen, and he even enrolled her for JAM, promising to sponsor her university education. For months, everything seemed perfect, until one night, she woke up and found Duru missing from their bed. She thought he might be in his office, so she went to look for him. But when she got near the corridor that led to the locked room, that same room nobody ever entered, she heard voices, low whispers, chanting, and something that sounded like sobbing. She froze. Her heart began to race. The next morning, Duru smelled like nothing had happened. He kissed her forehead and gave her money to go shopping. Shimi wanted to ask what he was doing in that locked room at midnight, but something told her to keep quiet. A few months later, she got pregnant, and Duru was overjoyed, or so it seemed. He bought her gifts, fruits, and supplements. He made her laugh. He told her she would make a wonderful mother. Then one morning, everything changed. She didn't wake up. No sickness, no warning, nothing. Just like Imela before her. Her parents cried their eyes out. Duru too cried, or at least pretended to. He insisted that he wanted to bury her behind his house, and the family agreed. After all, she was her husband. But unknown to everyone, the same dark fate had swallowed yet another innocent soul, and Duru was just getting started.
By the time Duru married his third wife, people had stopped asking questions. To them, it was normal. A rich man losing a young wife and moving on. After all, money covers many sins. So when news spread that Duru Nnamdi of Makondo had gone north to Zaria to take a new bride, no one blinked twice. Her name was Zainabu, a stunning young woman with caramel skin, wide eyes, and a shy smile that could melt anyone's heart. She was just 20 years old and had recently finished her tailoring apprenticeship. Zainabu lived with her widowed mother, who sold vegetables by the roadside. Life had not been easy for them, but they had each other, and that was enough. Then one sunny afternoon, a convoy of black jeeps pulled up in front of their small compound. The whole street came out to look. Who could be visiting the vegetable seller? It was Duru. He stepped out, dressed in white agbada that shimmered under the sun. He greeted Zainabu's mother respectfully, introduced himself, and went straight to the point. He said he wanted to marry her daughter. At first, the old woman laughed. She thought he was joking. But when she saw the envelope he dropped on her table, full of crisp notes, her laughter turned into tears of joy. She said, "Allah, you have remembered my family." Within a month, Duru had built her a new house and stocked her shop with goods. The wedding followed shortly after, colorful, grand, and filled with praise songs. Everyone called it the wedding of the year. Zainabu entered her husband's mansion in Makondo like a queen.
For the first time in her life, she slept on a soft bed, ate meals cooked by professional chefs, and wore gold jewelry that sparkled like sunlight on water. She told her mother on the phone, "Mama, this man is too kind. He treats me like a princess." But like every fairy tale that turns dark, Zainabu's joy did not last. After 2 months, she noticed something strange. Duru never let anyone visit, not even her mother. Every time she asked, he would say, "My love, let's enjoy our privacy. Visitors bring bad energy." And just like the previous wives, he forbade the staff from sleeping in the house at night. Once it was 6 p.m., the compound became silent. Too silent. The only sound she heard came from the crickets outside and the steady ticking of the wall clock in the hallway. One night, she couldn't sleep. Duru had gone into his mysterious locked room again. Curiosity got the better of her. She tiptoed down the hallway and placed her ear on the door. What she heard made her skin crawl. A deep voice was chanting, then a woman's voice crying softly, then silence. Zainabu ran back to bed and pretended to be asleep when Duru returned hours later. His hands were cold when he touched her shoulder. She opened her eyes and forced a smile, pretending not to notice the red stains on his white robe. 3 weeks later, she got pregnant, and just like the others, she never made it to the second trimester. One morning, the maids found her lifeless on the bed. Duru cried again, louder than anyone else. He told people it was pregnancy complications and insisted on burying her behind the house, just like he'd done with the others. No one dared to question him. After all, he was Duru Nnamdi, the man who could buy silence with a single phone call. But what nobody knew was that the ground behind his mansion was slowly turning into a graveyard of secrets. After Zainabu's death, something in Duru changed. He became quieter, colder, and more withdrawn. But his hunger for new brides didn't stop. It was as if every time one woman died, he grew hungrier for another. 6 months later, word spread again. Duru was getting married. But this time, it wasn't just any woman. It was one of the twin daughters of Chief Ayodele, a powerful businessman from the neighboring town of Oluma. Their names were Lara and Lola, identical twins. Lara was the gentle one, calm like early morning rain. Lola was the wild one, full of laughter and mischief. They were inseparable. One could feel what the other felt. When Duru first saw them at a charity gala, everyone could tell he was mesmerized. But what people didn't know was that he wasn't looking at them with love. He was studying them, as if deciding which one would make the perfect sacrifice. Within weeks, he proposed to Lara. Her family was overjoyed. They didn't even question why a man with 3 dead wives was proposing again. They believed in his charm and his money. After all, Duru was powerful, and no one dared to say no to him. But Lola, the twin sister, didn't trust him. From the first day she met him, she said to Lara, "That man carries shadows around him. I can feel them. Please don't marry him." Lara laughed it off. "You worry too much, Lola. He's kind to me." Still, on the night before the wedding, Lola had a dream, a horrible one. She saw her sister standing in a dark room, surrounded by red candles and strange symbols. A man's voice whispered her name again and again until she woke up screaming. She begged Lara one last time not to go through with the wedding, but it was too late. The next morning, the drums had started beating, the cars had arrived, and Duru was already waiting. So, Lola followed her sister to the mansion in Makondo, determined to protect her, even if it meant sneaking around. For 2 weeks, everything seemed fine. Lara glowed with happiness, and Duru played the perfect husband. He even invited Lola to stay for a while, pretending to be generous. But deep down, he knew exactly what he was doing. One night, when Lola couldn't sleep, she went to the balcony and saw Duru walking across the garden, holding a lantern. He was heading towards the small burial ground behind the house. She followed him quietly, barefoot, her heart thudding like a drum. When he reached the center of the graves, he stopped. The moonlight shone on his face as he dropped the lantern and raised his hands to the sky. Then he began to speak in a language he had never heard before. The ground beneath him moved, and slowly, one by one, pale hands began rising from the earth. The hands of women. Lola gasped and covered her mouth. She could see them clearly now, the faces of Duru's late wives. Their eyes were hollow, their lips whispering her sister's name. She turned to run, but her leg hit a dry stick. Crack! Duru spun around. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world went silent, only the wind howling through the trees. Then he smiled, that same cold, dangerous smile. Ah, he said softly, so you've seen them. Before Lola could scream, he whispered a word, and she froze, body stiff, mouth open, eyes wide with terror. She could hear him chanting as everything around her began to fade. The next morning, Lara woke up alone. Her sister was gone. Duru told her Lola had returned to Oluma in the middle of the night because she missed her mother. She believed him until she found a strand of her red-beaded bracelet buried in the soil behind the mansion.
2 months after Lola's disappearance, the mansion at Makondo grew colder than ever. Lara barely spoke anymore. Her once bright laughter had turned into silence. She spent most nights staring out the window, waiting for her twin to come home. But one strange evening, a knock echoed through the mansion's grand doors. Knock, knock, knock. It was late, too late for visitors. The maids had already left, and Duru was in his study as usual. When Lara went to open the door, she froze. A woman was standing there, drenched from the rain, dressed in a long brown wrapper and a black scarf that covered half her face. Her eyes were sharp, burning like firelight. "Please," she said in a calm, raspy voice, "I need shelter for the night." Lara hesitated. "Madam, this is private property." Before she could finish, Duru appeared behind her. "It's fine," he said quickly, forcing a smile. "Let her in." The woman entered without saying another word. As she walked past him, Duru's hand twitched slightly, like someone fighting the urge to strike. He didn't know why, but her presence unsettled him. There was something familiar about the way she moved. She introduced herself as Mama Ina, a traveler from the northern region. She said her bus had broken down and the driver left her stranded on the highway. Duru told the maids to prepare a room for her and excused himself early. But all through the night, he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, like someone pacing just outside his bedroom. When he finally opened the door, the corridor was empty, but the air felt heavy, like smoke after a fire. The next morning, the visitor was already seated at the dining table, sipping tea calmly. Lara was smiling for the first time in weeks, chatting with her. Duru walked in, and Mama Ina's eyes met his. "You don't look well, Chief. You've been walking with shadows." Duru's cup froze halfway to his lips. "Excuse me?" She smiled faintly. "You heard me." For the rest of the day, her words echoed in his mind. Walking with shadows, walking with shadows. That night, Duru decided to confront her. He went to her room, but she wasn't there. Instead, a faint humming sound drifted from the direction of the backyard, the same place he used to bury his wives. He followed the sound quietly. When he reached the graves, he saw Mama Ina standing there, barefoot, her black scarf now hanging loosely around her neck. The moonlight revealed her face clearly for the first time, and Duru's heart stopped. It wasn't an old woman at all. It was Lola. Her skin was pale,
Her eyes glowed faintly like dying embers, and her voice carried the weight of the grave. She said slowly, "You thought I was gone, didn't you? You buried me, but the ground rejected me." Duru stumbled back. "No, no, you're not real." But the wind began to howl, and one by one, the other graves cracked open. Zainabu, Adaeze, and even the first wife, Amaka, rising from the earth, their faces half covered in soil, their whispers merging into one voice. They called, "Duru Nnamdi, your time has come." He turned to run, but his feet sank into the ground, the very soil he used to cover his victims. Lara, hearing the commotion, rushed out with a lantern, only to find her husband clawing at the earth, screaming as the shadows swallowed him whole. When the wind died down, the backyard was silent again. The graves were gone, leveled as if nothing had ever been there. Only the lantern remained, flickering beside a single fresh grave. After that night, Duru Nnamdi was never seen again. No body, no trace, nothing. Some said he ran away into the forest, driven mad by guilt. Others whispered that the earth itself swallowed him whole. But Lara knew the truth. She saw it happen. She saw the ground open its mouth and take him. For 3 days, she didn't leave the mansion. She just sat on the floor of the bedroom, staring at the door, waiting for someone to knock or something to move. But no one came. Even the servants stopped showing up. They said the house felt different. The driver who came to pick up her clothes refused to step past the gate. "Madam," he said, trembling, "I heard voices coming from the walls. Please don't stay here alone." Lara didn't believe him at first. But that night as she walked down the hallway, she heard it too. Faint whispers behind the walls. Her name, Lara. She stopped, looked around. The lights flickered. "Lara!" The voice sounded like her sister's. She ran back to her room and locked the door, pressing her ear against the wood. The curtains moved, even though the windows were closed. The mirror by the dressing table began to fog up, and on it, 3 words slowly appeared, written by an invisible hand. "He's not gone." Lara's breath hitched. She backed away, clutching her phone, trying to call someone, anyone, but there was no signal. The whole mansion had gone dead silent again. Then she heard footsteps upstairs, slow, heavy, familiar. She froze. That sound, the dragging step, it was Duru's. The door handle began to turn on its own. Click, click, click. She screamed and ran towards the balcony, jumping into the garden below. She didn't even stop to pick her slippers. She ran barefoot through the night until she reached the main road, sobbing and trembling. By morning, she was found by a group of traders heading to the market. They said she was muttering one thing over and over again. "The house is alive! The house is alive!" When the police finally came to investigate, they found the mansion completely empty. But something strange happened when they entered the main hallway. Every officer saw they heard a woman crying softly from behind the walls. One of them said he saw a shadow moving through the mirrors, following them from room to room. They sealed off the house that same day. From then on, no one dared to buy it. Some nights, drivers passing through Makondo Road said they still see a faint light flickering in the compound. And if you listen closely, you can hear a woman whispering, "Run before he finds you."